There are moments in life that divide everything into before and after. Before the message, after the message, before the illusion shattered, after the silence screamed louder than words ever could. Emma had always believed that love, when built slowly and carefully, could survive anything. She believed in the quiet kind of love, the kind that wasn't loud on social media, the kind that didn't need constant reassurance. She believed in loyalty, in shared grocery lists, in inside jokes whispered in the dark. 8 years of marriage had taught her that love was not fireworks every day. It was steady warmth. Or at least, that's what she thought. The night she found the message was ordinary, painfully ordinary, the kind of night that doesn't announce itself as the beginning of a tragedy. It was raining outside, the kind of rain that taps gently against windows and makes everything feel smaller, safer. Daniel came home late again. He kissed her cheek absent-mindedly, said, "Long day." She smiled, said, "Dinner's warm." They ate quietly. He scrolled through his phone more than usual. She noticed, but told herself not to be that wife, not the insecure one, because Daniel had always been attentive, loving, protective. At least, he used to be. Over the past few months, something had shifted, not dramatically, just subtly, like a crack in glass you don't see until light hits it at the right angle. He started working late, started taking calls in another room, started locking his phone. Emma asked once, just once. He laughed. "You don't trust me." That sentence stayed with her, because she did trust him, completely, and that's why the doubt felt like betrayal, not by him, but by herself. The rain grew heavier that night. Daniel went to shower. Emma sat on the couch, staring at the television without watching it. Then his phone buzzed. Once, twice. She didn't mean to look. She truly didn't. But the screen lit up, and in that small rectangle of light, her entire marriage cracked open. "I missed last night already," read Heart Hash. Her heart stopped. There are moments when your body reacts before your mind does. Her hands went cold. Her ears rang. She told herself it was a misunderstanding, a joke, a colleague, a mistake, but her fingers were already reaching for the phone. She opened it. The password was new, but she knew him. She tried their anniversary. It unlocked, and there it was. Weeks of messages, flirting that wasn't playful, photos that weren't innocent, plans, hotel bookings, private jokes. The name, Lily. Emma didn't cry. Not at first. Shock is quieter than grief. Shock freezes you in place. She scrolled further back. 2 months. 3. 4. How long? How many nights had he come home and kissed her after being with someone else? How many times had she said, "I love you," while he carried another woman's scent on his skin? The bathroom door opened. Steam filled the hallway. Daniel walked out, towel around his waist, casual, comfortable, unaware. And in that moment, Emma looked at him and saw a stranger. But the worst part, she still loved him. And that was the beginning of her destruction. Because the real pain of cheating isn't just betrayal. It's loving someone who chose someone else. And as Daniel reached for his phone, Emma already knew one thing. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. And she had no idea how deep the truth would go. There is a moment after betrayal when time slows down. Not because the world stops, but because your heart does. Emma didn't remember standing up. She didn't remember walking toward him. She only remembered the sound of her own voice. It sounded distant, foreign. "Who is Lily?" Daniel's eyes flickered, just for a second, and that second told her everything. Because guilt always arrives before explanation. He recovered quickly, too quickly. "Why are you holding my phone?" Not, "Who is Lily?" Not, "Let me explain." But accusation. The shift, the defense, the subtle redirection of blame. And Emma felt it. The manipulation, the attempt to regain control. She held the phone tighter. Her hands were shaking now. Who is Lily? This time stronger, more certain. He exhaled, ran his hand through his wet hair. It's not what you think. There it was, the oldest line in betrayal history. Emma almost laughed, because it was exactly what she thought. And worse, she opened the messages again, turned the screen toward him. The hearts, the hotel, the I can't wait to feel you again. Silence filled the room like smoke. Daniel's shoulders dropped, and in that drop, she saw the truth. He knew he was caught. It meant nothing. The sentence echoed in her head. Nothing. For months, dozens of lies, secret hotel rooms, late nights, new passwords, and it meant nothing? Emma's chest tightened, because if it meant nothing, then what did their marriage mean? She wanted him to deny it, to say the messages were fake, that someone else used his phone, that this was a nightmare. Instead, he chose minimization. It was just physical. Just, as if intimacy could be reduced to a word so small. Emma felt anger rising, but beneath it was devastation. Did you love her? The question escaped before she could stop it. He hesitated. Too long. No, too quick. And she knew. Maybe he didn't love Lily, but he had given her something. Time, attention, energy, desire. Things Emma thought were hers. Exclusively. How long? She needed the number, because numbers make pain measurable. 4 months. 4 months. 1/3 of a year. 1 season of secrets. She replayed the timeline in her head. Christmas dinner with his parents. Her birthday. Their anniversary trip. Had he already started? Had he kissed Lily before kissing her goodnight? The images tortured her. Why? Such a simple word. But the heaviest one. Daniel looked lost. I don't know. Another lie. People always know. Loneliness, ego, opportunity, boredom, validation, desire. There is always a reason. I felt distant from you. There it was, the partial truth wrapped in blame. Emma felt it stab. You felt distant. Her voice cracked. I begged you to talk to me. I asked what was wrong. You said you were tired. He didn't respond, because she was right. He had chosen silence, then chosen someone else. The cruelest part? He didn't look evil. He looked scared, human, flawed, and that made it harder, because monsters are easier to leave than broken men. He stepped toward her. She stepped back, the distance between them suddenly enormous. I love you. The words felt contaminated. I love you, Emma. Not her. But love without loyalty is just sound. She sank onto the couch. Her body couldn't hold the weight anymore. Tears finally came. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, relentless. I wasn't enough. The thought crept in, uninvited, poisonous. Daniel knelt in front of her, tried to take her hands. She pulled away. Did you use protection? The question embarrassed her, but she needed to know. Yes. Too fast. But she didn't have the strength to verify. Was she better? The most vulnerable question, the one she hated herself for asking. His face crumpled. Don't do that. But she already had, because betrayal doesn't just break trust. It breaks self-worth. Minutes passed. Oh, hours. Time blurred. He cried. She stared. He apologized. Over and over. It was a mistake. But mistakes are forgetting milk at the store. This was a series of deliberate choices. Are you still seeing her? No. I'll end it. I promise. Will. Not did. He hadn't ended it. She had discovered it. That difference mattered. More than he realized. I was going to tell you. Another lie. She knew it. He knew it. They both let it hang there anyway, because the full truth was too brutal. She stood up slowly, walked to the bedroom, closed the door, and for the first time in 8 years, she locked it. On the other side, she heard him crying. Or maybe it was the rain. She lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing, her heart shattered. But beneath the pain, a terrifying thought surfaced. She didn't want to leave, not yet, and that frightened her more than the betrayal, because staying meant accepting that love could survive this. But at what cost? She closed her eyes and whispered into the darkness, "Can I ever look at you the same again?" There was no answer, only silence, and the slow realization that this was only the beginning. The morning after betrayal is strangely quiet, not peaceful, just numb. Emma sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. Daniel had fallen asleep on the couch sometime around dawn, exhausted from crying, from apologizing, from trying to hold on to something already slipping. But Emma didn't sleep. Sleep requires safety, and safety was gone. She stared at her phone for a long time before she opened the messages again. Lily's name glowed on the screen. So ordinary, just a name, but attached to it were months of deception. Emma had imagined her differently, cruel, manipulative, predatory. It was easier that way, easier to hate a villain, harder to confront a human. Her thumb hovered over the number. She didn't know what she wanted. Closure? Answers? Pain? Maybe all of it. She pressed call. It rang 3 times. Then a soft voice answered. "Hello." Emma's throat tightened. "Is this Lily?" "Yes. Who is this?" There was innocence in her tone. Or maybe Emma imagined it. "I'm Daniel's wife." Silence. Not a gasp. Not anger. Just a long, heavy silence. Then, "Oh!" One syllable, full of realization. Emma braced herself. For denial, for arrogance, for cruelty. Instead, Lily's voice trembled. "I didn't know." Emma's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "He told me you were separated." The words landed like a second betrayal. Separated. The marriage was over. Living like roommates. Waiting for the right time. Emma had heard those exact complaints from Daniel. But about Lily, she's just someone I met. It's not serious. 2 scripts. 2 lies. 1 man. Emma felt something shift inside her. The betrayal expanded. It wasn't just physical anymore. It was architectural. He had built 2 realities. Carefully. Simultaneously. "How long have you known him?" Emma asked. 5 months. 5 months. Longer than the affair timeline he confessed to. Emma felt the ground tilt again. "When did you start seeing him?" A pause. "About 4 months ago." So that part was true. At least partially. "Did he ever say he loved you?" Another pause. "Yes." There it was. Emma closed her eyes, because he had said it to her too. Every night. Lily's voice broke slightly. "He said he was unhappy, that you two were just comfortable, that the spark was gone." Emma swallowed, because she remembered the night she asked him if he was okay. And he smiled, and said everything was fine. Fine. Such a dangerous word. They agreed to meet, not out of friendship, not out of alliance, but out of necessity. Emma needed to see her, to humanize the ghost in her marriage. The cafe was quiet, mid-morning, neutral territory. When Lily walked in, Emma felt something unexpected. Not hatred, not rage, but shock. She was young, maybe 26, nervous, holding her purse too tightly. She didn't look like a homewrecker. She looked like someone who had also been deceived. They sat across from each other. 2 women connected by 1 man's dishonesty. "I'm sorry," Lily said immediately. "I swear, I didn't know." Emma studied her face, looking for arrogance, for triumph. There was none, only embarrassment and hurt. He told me you were already moving out, Lily continued, that it was just paperwork. Paperwork. 8 years reduced to paperwork. Emma let out a slow breath. He told me you were just someone he met, that it wasn't serious. Lily's eyes widened. He said he loved me. The cafe felt smaller, the air heavier. Emma realized something painful in that moment. Daniel hadn't chosen between them. He had tried to keep both, and that revealed something darker than passion. It revealed entitlement. They compared timelines, vacations, weekends, excuses. Emma recognized dates. Nights he claimed business dinners. Trips he said were conferences. All of it mapped perfectly. A double life, executed calmly. Lily wiped her eyes. I ended it last night, she said quietly. He told me you found out. Emma blinked. He didn't tell me that. He said you were unstable, that you might try to contact me. There it was, the final twist. Emma felt anger surge for the first time that morning. Unstable. Gaslighting extended. Even now, even exposed, he was still shaping narratives. I'm not unstable, Emma said firmly. I know, Lily whispered. And in that exchange, something unspoken passed between them. Recognition. They were both manipulated, in different ways, for different reasons, but manipulated nonetheless. Emma left the cafe with more clarity than she expected. The pain was sharper, but clearer. It wasn't just lust. It wasn't just weakness. It was deception layered upon deception. When she walked into the house, Daniel was waiting. He stood up quickly. Where were you? She placed her bag down slowly. I met Lily. His face drained of color. Fear replaced defensiveness. What did she say? Emma looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, she didn't see just her husband. She saw a man capable of constructing parallel truths. She said, you told her we were separated. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. But there were no good explanations left. Only fragments. Only damage control. Only fear of consequences. And Emma realized something devastating. The affair wasn't the worst part. The lies were, because betrayal can sometimes be impulsive. But sustained deception? That's calculated. And as Daniel stood there, searching for a version of the truth that would hurt less, Emma understood. She didn't know this man anymore, and the next choice she made would define the rest of her life. There's a specific kind of desperation that comes only after exposure, not before. Before exposure, there's confidence, carelessness, even arrogance. But after, there's fear. Daniel was afraid. Emma could see it in the way he moved around the house, like a man trying to hold together a collapsing structure with his bare hands. I deleted everything, he said, as if deletion equaled redemption, as if erasing evidence erased impact. Emma stood across from him, exhausted beyond tears. You deleted proof, she replied quietly, not the betrayal. The truth hung between them like broken glass. He offered everything. Therapy, full access to his phone, location tracking, a new job, a new city, a new start. I'll do anything, he repeated, and she believed that part, but not because of love, because of fear. Fear of losing comfort, fear of being the villain, fear of consequences. Would you have told me? She asked. The most important question, the one that determines everything. He hesitated. That hesitation answered it. Silence is sometimes louder than confession. She walked away before he could construct another half-truth. In the bedroom, she stared at their shared tablet on the dresser. An afterthought, something they barely used. Her fingers moved without thinking. Email, search, his secondary account, the one he used for subscriptions. And there it was, another layer. Hotel confirmation she hadn't seen. Receipts. Photographs. Not explicit, but intimate. A selfie of him smiling at the camera, sent to Lily, a version of his smile Emma hadn't seen in months. And then, a draft, never sent. I wish I met you earlier in my life. Emma felt her knees weaken. Earlier in my life. Before her? Before their vows? Before 8 years of building something real. This wasn't just physical. This wasn't just ego. This was emotional migration. He hadn't just stepped outside the marriage. He had imagined replacing it. Her breathing became shallow. She read the draft again, and again, trying to find a different meaning. There wasn't one. When she walked back into the living room, Daniel looked hopeful, like a man waiting for a second chance. She placed the tablet in front of him. He saw the screen. His face crumpled. I didn't send it. The defense was immediate. You wrote it. Her voice didn't rise. That frightened him more. He covered his face with his hands. I was confused. No, she whispered. You were exploring. That word cut deeper than accusation, because it implied curiosity, intent, possibility. He looked up at her, eyes red. I liked the attention, he admitted finally. Honesty, late but present. She made me feel wanted. Emma felt something inside her collapse. Was I not wanting you? That's not what I mean. But it was. In some way. He continued. I didn't think you'd actually leave. There it was. The raw truth. He thought she would stay. Because she always had. Through stress. Through distance. Through late nights. Through emotional withdrawal. He assumed her loyalty was permanent. Unconditional. Unbreakable. And that assumption gave him freedom. Freedom to test boundaries. Freedom to gamble. Freedom to risk. Because the house would always be there. Emma realized something in that moment. He didn't think he could lose her. And that belief had made her disposable. Not because he didn't love her, but because he felt secure enough to betray her. Security had become his permission. She walked into the bedroom silently, opened the closet, pulled out a suitcase. The sound of the zipper echoed. He followed. Emma, don't. She folded clothes mechanically, not angrily, not dramatically, just steadily. You're overreacting, he said softly. The worst possible sentence, because it minimized. Again, she stopped folding, turned slowly. No, she said. I'm finally reacting. The difference mattered. For months, she had reacted internally. Suspicion, sadness, loneliness. Now, she was reacting externally, with movement, with consequence, with departure. He stood frozen, realizing too late that apologies don't rebuild what deception dismantles. As she packed, memories surfaced uninvited. Their first apartment, painting walls together, late-night pizza on the floor, laughter, plans for children, vacations, ordinary joy. Was all of that false? No, that was the cruel part. It was real, and so was this. People are capable of loving and betraying at the same time. That paradox destroys everything. When the suitcase was full, she zipped it closed. The sound felt final, but inside her, nothing felt certain, just shattered. She paused at the doorway, looked at him one last time in that room. The man she had chosen. The man who had chosen someone else. I need space, she said quietly. He nodded, because for once, he had no argument left. And as she walked toward the door, suitcase rolling behind her, she didn't know yet what she was leaving behind. But she knew one thing with clarity. She was leaving the version of herself that tolerated less than she deserved. And that was only the beginning. There are moments in life when the universe seems almost cruel in its timing, as if it waits for your weakest point, then adds weight, Emma had been at her sister Claire's apartment for 5 days when she first noticed the nausea. At first, she blamed it on stress, on lack of sleep, on grief, because heartbreak has physical symptoms. It tightens your chest, steals your appetite, makes the world spin unexpectedly. Claire tried to keep things normal. They watched old movies, cooked dinner together, avoided saying Daniel's name, but silence has a sound, and it followed Emma everywhere. Her phone buzzed constantly. Daniel, always Daniel. I'm sorry. I'll change. Please talk to me. I can't lose you. She read the messages without responding, not out of cruelty, but because she didn't know what to say. Every word felt insufficient. Every conversation felt like reopening a wound. On the 6th morning, Emma opened the calendar on her phone, counted backward, then forward. Her breath caught. She counted again. It didn't make sense. It couldn't make sense. But numbers don't lie. Her period was late. More than late. Significantly late. Her heart began to pound, not from hope, from fear, because timing matters. And the last time she and Daniel had been close, it had been right before everything shattered. She didn't tell Claire. Not yet. Instead, she walked to the pharmacy alone. The air outside felt too bright, too ordinary. How could the world continue so casually when her life felt suspended? She picked up the test quickly, avoided eye contact with the cashier, as if pregnancy was something shameful or fragile. Back at the apartment, she locked herself in the bathroom, sat on the edge of the tub, hands trembling. There are certain moments in life when time stretches unbearably. Waiting for those results felt longer than discovering the affair, because this wasn't just about betrayal. This was about permanence. She placed the test on the counter, turned away, counted slowly. 1, 2, 3. She told herself she didn't want it to be positive, because positive complicated everything. But a small part of her, the part that had once imagined nursery colors and baby names, whispered something softer. When she turned back, her knees weakened. 2 faint lines, not bold, not dramatic, but there, undeniable. Her first reaction wasn't joy or devastation. It was disbelief. No, she whispered, as if the word could reverse biology. She picked it up, looked closer. Maybe it was a shadow, an evaporation line, a mistake. But the second line remained, steady, certain. Emma sat on the bathroom floor, back against the cold tile, and for the first time since leaving Daniel, she cried without restraint, because this changed everything. Leaving was one thing. Leaving while carrying his child was something else entirely. She thought about the draft message. I wish I met you earlier in my life. What if she had met him earlier in his life? Before he learned how to lie so effortlessly, before comfort turned into complacency? She pressed her palm against her stomach instinctively. It felt surreal, like holding a secret too heavy for one body. Was this a gift or a chain? Would this child bind her to a man she no longer trusted, or give her strength she didn't know she had? Her phone buzzed again. Daniel. She stared at his name. For a moment, she imagined telling him immediately, imagined his reaction. Shock, then joy, because Daniel had always wanted children. They had postponed it for careers, for timing, for stability. Ironically, stability. She wiped her tears, answered the call. Emma. His voice cracked with relief. Thank God. She stayed silent. I miss you, he continued. The house feels empty. That word again. Empty. She wondered if he understood the weight of emptiness now. I'm going to therapy, he said quickly. I made an appointment. I'm serious. She believed him, but belief wasn't enough anymore. I need time, she said softly. There was a pause. I'll give you whatever you need. Would he? Would he give her freedom? Would he give her peace? Would he give her truth? She almost told him. The words hovered. I'm pregnant. They pressed against her throat, but she swallowed them. Not yet, because if she told him now, the pregnancy would become part of negotiation, part of reconciliation, part of persuasion, and she needed to know what she wanted first. After the call ended, she sat in silence. The bathroom suddenly felt smaller, the future larger. She imagined raising a child alone, doctor appointments alone, birth alone, birthdays, first steps, school events, alone. Then she imagined staying, trying to rebuild trust while rocking a newborn at 3 a.m., wondering where he was, who he was texting, if he resented her, if he stayed only because of obligation. Neither future felt simple. Neither felt safe. Claire knocked gently. Emma, you okay? She quickly hid the test. Yeah, she lied, because some truths need time to breathe before they are shared. That night, she lay awake again, hand resting lightly on her abdomen. 2 lines, 2 futures, 2 possible lives. And somewhere in the distance, Daniel believed he was fighting for his marriage. But he didn't know yet. He was fighting for something much bigger. And when he found out, hope would ignite in him. But in her, it might feel like pressure. And that difference would change everything. There are truths that feel like confessions, and there are truths that feel like detonations. Emma stood outside the house she had once called home, her hand resting lightly on her stomach, as if the small, invisible life inside her could feel hesitation. The door looked the same. The windows looked the same. But she wasn't the same woman who had walked out with a suitcase days ago. She knocked. Daniel opened the door almost instantly, as if he had been standing there, waiting. For her. For forgiveness. For anything. His eyes widened when he saw her. Hope flashed across his face so quickly it hurt to witness. Emma. He stepped aside instinctively, inviting her in. She walked into the living room slowly. Nothing had changed. The couch, the framed photos, the quiet, but the air felt different. Charged. They sat across from each other. The same room where she had packed her suitcase. The same room where he had said she was overreacting. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, from magnitude. I didn't come back to move in, she said first. His face fell slightly, but he nodded. Okay. She swallowed. There are moments when words feel heavier than mountains. I'm pregnant. Silence. Complete. Total. Daniel blinked once, then twice, as if his brain needed time to catch up with sound. Are you serious? His voice cracked. She nodded, and something changed in his face. Shock melted into something else. Joy. Raw. Unfiltered. He stood up suddenly, ran a hand through his hair, laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from disbelief and relief combined. Oh, my God! Tears filled his eyes. He stepped toward her instinctively and wrapped his arms around her. For a second, she allowed it. Then she realized she wasn't hugging back. Her arms remained at his sides, because while he felt hope, she felt weight. He pulled back, hands on her shoulders. This changes everything. Yes, it did, but not in the way he thought. He started pacing, already planning. We're going to be parents. His voice carried excitement she hadn't heard in months. This is our second chance, Emma. We can fix this. For the baby. For the baby. She noticed that. Not for us. Not because you choose me. For the baby. Daniel, she said quietly, grounding the moment. He stopped pacing, looked at her with intensity. I'm serious, he said. I'll do anything. Therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. I'll be the father you deserve. She held his gaze. Are you staying because of me, or because of the baby? The question hung in the room. Fragile. Dangerous. He hesitated, just slightly, but she saw it. Both, he said finally. The right answer, but not the convincing one, because when love is certain, there is no hesitation. She looked around the room. Imagine the crib by the window, soft blankets, midnight feedings. But alongside those images came others. Daniel checking his phone, late meetings, her wondering, her doubting. Trust doesn't automatically rebuild because of a heartbeat. If anything, it becomes more crucial. I haven't decided what I'm going to do, she said honestly. His face shifted from joy to anxiety. You're not thinking about leaving, right? Not now. Not now. As if pregnancy erased betrayal. As if life inside her obligated forgiveness. I'm thinking, she replied, and that frightened him. Over the next hour, he became someone else. Attentive, focused, determined. He talked about prenatal vitamins, doctor appointments, moving her things back immediately, telling his parents, planning a nursery. The shift was immediate, like he had found something worth fighting for. But Emma couldn't ignore the undercurrent. Was he fighting for her, or fighting against losing the idea of a family? There's a difference, a subtle one, but critical. He reached for her hand again. This is fate, he whispered. No, she said softly. It's biology. He flinched slightly, because fate feels romantic. Biology feels neutral. Real. She stood up slowly. I didn't come here to promise anything. His face tightened. I came because you deserve to know. And, he asked, and I need to know if you want me, even without this. The words pierced the illusion, because now there was a possibility she might leave, even pregnant. And that possibility forced him to confront something deeper than guilt. He stepped closer. I want you. But she needed more than words. She needed consistency, time, proof, because children amplify everything. If love is weak, it weakens further. If trust is fragile, it fractures. As she walked toward the door again, Daniel followed. Please don't shut me out, he said. She paused at the threshold. I'm not shutting you out. She looked down at her stomach. I'm protecting myself. And maybe protecting this child from growing up in a house filled with silent resentment. As she left, Daniel stood in the doorway, hopeful, terrified, determined. For him, the pregnancy felt like salvation. For her, it felt like pressure, because now every decision carried another heartbeat inside it. And she realized something terrifying as she drove away. If she stayed now, would she ever know if he chose her, or simply chose not to lose everything? And just as that question began to settle, her phone rang. Unknown number. But she already knew. Lily, and whatever Lily had to say next, would make this even more complicated. There's a particular kind of pain that feels familiar, almost predictable. Emma had just begun to steady herself after telling Daniel about the pregnancy when her phone rang. Unknown number. But she already knew, because some people become tied to your life in ways you never chose. She answered, Hello. Lily's voice came through, softer than before. I didn't know you were pregnant. Emma's breath caught. The world outside the windshield seemed to blur. How do you know that? She asked carefully. A pause. Daniel called me last night. The words didn't hit immediately. They settled slowly, like poison. He said he needed closure. Lily continued. Closure. That word again. So clean. So misleading. Emma gripped the steering wheel tighter. What exactly did he say? Lily hesitated, as if unsure whether sharing would cause more harm. But harm had already been done. He said he's going to be a father, that everything is complicated, that he doesn't know what he feels anymore. Emma closed her eyes, because that sentence revealed more than the affair ever had. He doesn't know what he feels. After being caught, after apologizing, After begging, after promising therapy, after hearing about the baby, he still didn't know. And instead of confronting that confusion honestly, he reached back toward the woman he claimed meant nothing. Did he ask to see you? Emma asked quietly. Yes. There it was. Not just words. Action. He said he just wanted to talk. For closure. Closure doesn't happen in secret. Closure doesn't require hiding. Closure doesn't involve telling another woman you still think about her. Lily's voice trembled slightly. I told him no. That surprised Emma. I'm not going to be part of this anymore, Lily continued. I thought he chose you. And the baby. Emma let out a slow breath. He said he did. He doesn't know what he's choosing, Lily replied softly. That sentence lingered long after the call ended. He doesn't know what he's choosing. Emma asked Lily to send the messages, not because she needed more proof, but because she needed confirmation. Screenshots arrived seconds later. She opened them slowly. Message 1. I'm going to be a father, but I still think about you. Her stomach dropped. Message 2. I don't know what I feel anymore. Message 3. Maybe in another life. Another life. Again. Always another life. Always another possibility. Always keeping an exit door slightly open. Emma felt something different this time. Not shock, not devastation, but clarity. This wasn't confusion. This was avoidance. Daniel didn't want to lose anything. Not her, not Lily, not the image of a family, not the thrill of desire. He wanted all options preserved. And that realization hurt more than the original betrayal, because it wasn't about weakness. It was about character. She called him immediately. He answered on the first ring. Emma. His voice carried hope again. That fragile hope she had seen earlier. Did you call Lily last night? She asked directly. A pause. Yeah. No denial. Progress. Foreclosure. He added that quickly, as if repetition would make it true. Closure, she repeated. I needed to clear things up. You told her you still think about her. Silence. He didn't know she had proof. I was being honest. Honest. The irony almost made her laugh. Honesty would have been telling me you were still unsure, she replied. I am unsure, he snapped suddenly. This is overwhelming. There it was, the crack in the performance. I just found out I'm going to be a father. I'm trying to process everything. So you process by reopening doors. It didn't mean anything. That sentence again, the most dangerous sentence in their marriage. Emma felt something inside her settle, a cold understanding. You didn't cheat once, she said slowly. You cheat every time you keep the door open. Silence, deep, heavy. On the other end of the line, Daniel had no defense ready, because she wasn't accusing. She was defining. I chose you, he insisted. No, she corrected calmly. You chose comfort. You chose not losing everything. That's not the same as choosing me. Her voice didn't tremble this time. It didn't crack. It didn't beg. And that frightened him more than tears ever could. Emma, please. No, she interrupted. I won't compete with someone you claim meant nothing. He exhaled sharply. You're hormonal. The word landed like a slap. Hormonal. Reducing her clarity to chemistry. Reducing her reasoning to emotion. That was the moment something shifted permanently. Because betrayal can sometimes be forgiven. But disrespect after betrayal? That calcifies. My hormones didn't text her, she said quietly. My hormones didn't ask for closure. Silence again, but this time it felt final. I need to think, he whispered, and Emma realized the most painful truth of all. He was still thinking, still weighing, still evaluating, even now, even with a child on the way. And she understood something with terrifying clarity. If she stayed, she would always wonder whether he was fully there. or partially elsewhere. Love cannot thrive in divided loyalty, and she refused to raise a child in emotional uncertainty. When the call ended, she didn't cry. Not this time. She sat in her car, staring ahead, feeling something unfamiliar. Strength. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. The kind of strength that comes when illusions finally dissolve. Because sometimes a second betrayal hurts less. Not because it's smaller, but because you see it clearly. And clarity is power. There are moments in life that don't feel loud. They don't come with screaming or chaos. They don't shake walls or shatter glass. They arrive quietly, like a decision made in the deepest part of your heart long before anyone else knows it exists. That morning, the house was still. The sun filtered softly through the curtains, casting gentle light across the kitchen floor. Emma sat at the table with a cup of tea growing cold between her hands. She hadn't slept much, but she didn't look exhausted. She looked resolved. There's a difference. Daniel walked in slowly. He had rehearsed apologies in his head all night. He expected anger. He expected accusations. What he did not expect was calm. She looked up at him. Her eyes weren't red from crying. They weren't swollen. They were steady. "I've made a decision," she said. 4 simple words, but they shifted the air in the room. Daniel swallowed. "Emma, before you say anything." "No," she interrupted gently. "You can talk after." The gentleness unsettled him more than rage ever could. He nodded and sat across from her. He noticed the untouched tea, the stillness in her posture. He mistook it for weakness. It wasn't. It was clarity. "I won't live in doubt," she said softly. He exhaled. Relief almost flickered across his face. "We can fix that," he said quickly. "I'll block her. I'll delete everything. I'll give you passwords. I'll do therapy. Whatever you want." Emma listened, truly listened, not because she believed him, but because she needed to hear whether he finally understood. "You shouldn't have to threaten to leave for someone to choose you," she replied. The words landed gently, but they carried years of weight. Daniel leaned forward. "I am choosing you." "You chose me after being caught," she corrected calmly. Silence. He tried again. "I was scared." "Of losing me?" "Yes." "Or losing options?" That question lingered between them like smoke. He didn't answer immediately, and that pause answered everything. Emma stood slowly. "I'm not angry anymore," she said. That frightened him, because anger meant emotion. Anger meant attachment. But calm meant acceptance. She walked into the bedroom. Daniel followed, heart pounding. He watched as she pulled out a small suitcase. Not the large one, not the dramatic one, just a modest bag. She opened the closet, took out a few essentials. Comfortable clothes, a sweater, important documents, prenatal vitamins. The sound of hangers sliding felt louder than any argument they'd ever had. "Emma," he whispered. She didn't stop packing. "I won't raise my child in doubt." That sentence broke something in him. "This is our child," he said quickly. "Our family." She zipped the suitcase halfway and looked at him. Family doesn't keep backups. The room felt smaller. He ran his hand through his hair. "You're overreacting." She didn't flinch. "My hormones didn't text her," she said again, calmly. He stepped closer. Tears filled his eyes now. Real ones. Not strategic. Not defensive. Raw. "You're my family," he said, voice cracking. And for the first time, she saw genuine fear. Not fear of being exposed. Not fear of consequences. But fear of losing her presence. And yet, fear after betrayal feels different. It feels late. She softened slightly, because she still loved him. Love doesn't disappear overnight. It fades in layers. But love without trust is fragile. And she could not afford fragile anymore. not with a child growing inside her. "I hope you become the father this child deserves," she said quietly. "But I can't stay and teach you how to value me." That was the truth. She wasn't leaving because she didn't love him. She was leaving because loving him had begun to cost her self-respect, and she refused to let her child inherit a version of her that stayed small. Daniel finally understood something terrifying. She wasn't leaving to scare him. She wasn't leaving as a tactic. She wasn't waiting to be chased. She was done convincing. And when a woman stops convincing, she's already gone. He stepped aside as she lifted the suitcase. He wanted to stop her, but something in her posture warned him. If he grabbed her now, he would lose her forever. So he didn't. He watched. The walk to the door felt longer than usual, each step echoing louder than the last. She paused at the doorway, not for him, but for herself, because leaving a life you built is never easy, even when it's necessary. She looked back once, not with hatred, not with bitterness, but with sadness, for what could have been, for what should have been, for the man she believed he was. Then she opened the door and stepped out. The sound of it closing was soft, not dramatic, not violent, just final. And in that silence that followed, Daniel felt something he had avoided for months. Loss, real loss, not the threat of it, not the idea of it, but the physical, suffocating absence of a presence. He stood in the kitchen long after she left. The house felt different, too quiet, too empty. He picked up her teacup, cold, unfinished, like everything else. For the first time, there was no one else to blame. No hormones, no confusion, no closure, just consequences. And somewhere down the road, driving toward her sister's house, Emma placed one hand gently over her stomach. She felt afraid, but she also felt free, because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from someone you love, not because you stopped loving them, but because you started loving yourself more. Regret is a strange thing. It doesn't knock politely. It doesn't arrive when you ask for it. It waits. It watches. And when it finally settles in, it makes itself at home in your chest. That night, Daniel lay in bed alone. For the first time in years, the space beside him felt unnaturally wide. He reached out instinctively in the dark. His hand met cold sheets. Absence. And in that quiet darkness, something inside him shifted, because when Emma had cried in front of him, he still felt powerful. When she had argued, he still felt needed. When she had begged for reassurance, he still felt chosen. But this silence, this was different. Silence meant he no longer had control over how this story ended. He checked his phone. No new messages. He opened their old photos. Smiling vacations, lazy Sunday mornings, ultrasound appointment confirmations saved in her calendar. He felt something tighten in his throat. He had believed she wouldn't leave. Not really. He thought her love for him was stronger than her pain. He thought the baby would make her stay. He thought apologies were enough. But he underestimated something powerful: self-respect. Meanwhile, across town, Emma lay awake at her sister's house. The guest room was smaller, the bed unfamiliar, but her chest felt lighter. Sad, but lighter. She placed her hand gently over her stomach again. "You're going to be okay," she whispered softly. She didn't know exactly how, but she believed it, and belief is stronger than fear. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Daniel. She watched it light up. She didn't answer. It buzzed again, and again. Finally, messages appeared. "Please talk to me. I made a mistake. We can fix this." She stared at the screen. Tears gathered in her eyes, not because she doubted her decision, but because love doesn't vanish overnight. It lingers. It takes. It remembers. But she also remembered something else. He only panicked after she left. Not when she cried, not when she discovered the affair, not when she revealed the pregnancy. only when she walked away. And that realization mattered. The next day, Daniel stood outside her sister's house. He looked different, not polished, not composed, just tired. Emma opened the door slowly. Their eyes met. He looked smaller somehow, less confident, less certain. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. She stepped outside, closed the door behind her. Cold air between them. He didn't waste time this time. "I was selfish," he said immediately. No excuses, no deflection. "I like the attention. I like feeling wanted. I didn't think about what it would cost." She listened. He swallowed hard. "I didn't think you would leave." There it was, the truth, and it hurt more than the affair itself, because it revealed something deeper. He didn't think she valued herself enough to go. "You didn't think I would leave," she repeated softly. He shook his head. "I thought you loved me too much." She nodded slowly. "I did." Past tense. He noticed. It stung. "I still do," she clarified gently. "But love isn't the only thing that matters." He stepped closer. "I'll change." She didn't argue. "I'll go to therapy. I'll give you access to everything. I'll block her permanently. I'll do whatever it takes." He was desperate now, and desperation feels different from remorse. Remorse is about understanding the damage. Desperation is about fearing the consequence. "I believe you're sorry," she said quietly. Relief flickered across his face. "And I forgive you." His shoulders relaxed slightly, but she wasn't finished. Forgiveness doesn't mean access. The relief vanished. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not carrying anger anymore, but it doesn't mean I trust you." Silence fell between them. Trust, that fragile, invisible thread that once held everything together, broken, and harder to rebuild than love itself. "I can earn it back," he insisted. She looked at him gently. "You don't earn trust with promises. You earn it with consistency." "I'll be consistent." "Maybe," she replied softly, "but I can't pause my healing while you figure it out." That was the difference now. Before, she would have waited. She would have stayed and supervised his growth. She would have sacrificed her peace for his comfort. Not anymore. He felt it. The distance. Not physical. Emotional. And it terrified him. "I don't want to lose my family," he whispered. She softened again, because she never wanted this outcome either. But she also knew something essential. Staying out of fear is not the same as staying out of love. "You're still going to be a father," she said gently, "and I hope you show up fully." "Without you?" he asked. She didn't answer immediately, because she didn't know yet. Healing isn't linear. Trust doesn't reappear overnight. And sometimes, space reveals truth more clearly than proximity ever could. "I need time," she said finally. Time. The one thing he had wasted. Now the one thing she required. He nodded slowly, because for the first time, he understood. He wasn't negotiating anymore. He wasn't persuading. He was waiting. And waiting feels powerless when you're used to control. As she stepped back toward the door, he felt something heavy settle in his chest. Helplessness. He had chased attention outside his marriage. Now he was chasing the woman who once stood still for him. And she wasn't running. She was simply walking forward. Without him. Not in anger. Not in revenge. But in growth. And growth changes people. Sometimes in ways you can't undo. As Emma closed the door behind her, she leaned against it for a moment. Tears finally fell. Not because she regretted leaving, but because she wished things had been different. She wished he had realized sooner. She wished love alone had been enough. But life doesn't run on wishes. It runs on choices. And Daniel had made his. Now she was making hers. And somewhere between regret and realization, he began to understand. The hardest lesson isn't losing someone. It's realizing you lost them because you thought they would end. Stress doesn't always scream. Sometimes it settles quietly in the body. It lingers in tightened shoulders, in sleepless nights, in thoughts that refuse to rest. Emma had told herself she was strong. That leaving was the right decision. That clarity would bring peace. And emotionally, it had, but the body keeps its own record of pain. The prenatal clinic smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender, a strained combination of clinical and comforting. Emma lay back as the doctor checked her blood pressure again. The cuff tightened, squeezed, held. The doctor frowned slightly, not dramatically, just enough. "Your blood pressure is still elevated," she said gently. Emma looked at her. "Is that bad?" "It's not ideal," the doctor replied carefully. "Stress can affect pregnancy more than people realize." Stress, such a small word for something that had consumed months of her life. "I've been going through some personal things," Emma admitted quietly. The doctor nodded with understanding. "I need you resting. No emotional shocks. No instability." Instability. That word echoed, because instability had defined her marriage for months. "Your body needs calm," the doctor continued. "The baby needs calm." Emma nodded slowly. She would give her child calm, even if it meant rebuilding everything from scratch. That night, the house was quiet. Her sister had gone to bed. Emma lay awake again, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. She whispered softly, "I'm trying." Trying to be strong. Trying to be steady. Trying not to think about the man who once lay beside her. Suddenly, a sharp pain twisted low in her abdomen. She inhaled sharply. It passed, then returned. Stronger. Fear rushed in instantly, not for herself, for the baby. Her sister found her gripping the edge of the bed, breathing unevenly. "We're going to the hospital," her sister said firmly. "No, maybe it's just stress. We're not risking it." Within minutes, they were in the car, streetlights blurring past. Emma tried to stay calm, tried to breathe, but fear is a way of overpowering logic. Meanwhile, across town, Daniel sat alone at the kitchen table. The house still felt empty. He hadn't turned on the television, hadn't eaten much. His phone lay face up in front of him. He had stopped texting her, not because he didn't want to, but because he sensed pushing would only drive her further away. When his phone rang, his heart jumped. Her sister's name flashed on the screen. He answered immediately. "Hello." Her voice was tight. "There's been a complication." His stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "We're at the hospital." The word emergency followed, and suddenly nothing else existed. He didn't remember grabbing his keys, didn't remember locking the door. He only remembered driving faster than he ever had, because fear changes priorities instantly, and this fear was different. It wasn't about losing a marriage. It wasn't about losing pride. It was about losing something innocent, something that had nothing to do with mistakes. The hospital corridor felt endless. Bright white lights, cold chairs, muted voices. He paced, hands trembling. For the first time in months, Lily didn't cross his mind. Not once. For the first time, ego disappeared completely. All that remained was raw, unfiltered fear. What if he lost both of them? What if his selfishness had ripple effects he could never undo? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tightly. He wasn't bargaining for his marriage anymore. He was praying for their safety. And in that sterile waiting room, something inside him cracked open, because consequences aren't always emotional. Sometimes they're physical. Sometimes they threaten what you love most. The minutes felt like hours. Every time a nurse walked past, his head snapped up. Finally, a doctor emerged. Daniel stood immediately. "How is she?" The doctor's face was professional, careful. "We were able to stabilize her." The air returned to his lungs. But the doctor hadn't finished. "She experienced a stress-induced episode. The baby is stable for now, but she needs complete rest. No emotional strain. No emotional strain. The irony cut deep, because he had been the strain. "Can I see her?" he asked quietly. The doctor hesitated, then nodded. "But keep it calm." Calm. He walked into the room slowly. Emma lay pale against the white sheets, eyes closed, monitors beeping softly. He had never seen her look so fragile, and the sight crushed him. He approached carefully. She opened her eyes slowly. When she saw him, there was no anger, just exhaustion. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I came." His voice broke. He took her hand gently, and for the first time in months, there was no tension in that touch, just fear. "Shared. I'm sorry," he said quietly, not as defense, not as persuasion, just truth. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something different. Not panic about losing her, not desperation, but realization. "I need peace," she whispered. He nodded immediately. "You'll have it." I mean real peace. The kind he hadn't given her. He understood, because almost losing them had rearranged something inside him. "You and the baby come first," he said. And this time, it wasn't a performance. It was stripped of pride, stripped of ego, stripped of anything selfish. Just raw clarity. She watched him carefully, because words are easy, but moments like this reveal truth. And for the first time since everything shattered, she saw him without defenses, without charm, without manipulation, just a man terrified of the damage he had caused. The machines continued their steady rhythm. Life, fragile, precious, unforgiving of emotional chaos. Daniel squeezed her hand gently, and in that hospital room, under harsh white lights, something shifted again. Not reconciliation, not yet, but awareness, because sometimes it takes standing on the edge of loss to understand what truly matters. And as Emma drifted back to sleep, exhausted but stable, Daniel remained seated beside her, not speaking, not asking, just present. And presence was something he should have given all along. The morning light came softly through the blinds. It painted the hospital room in gentle shades of gold and white, like a quiet promise. Emma sat in the chair, a tiny bundle cradled in her arms. The soft rise and fall of her newborn's breathing seemed to steady something deep within her. Every previous day of chaos, pain, betrayal, and heartbreak felt like it had been leading to this small, miraculous moment. Daniel stood a few steps away, hesitant, unsure, and perhaps for the first time completely powerless. He had imagined what it would be like to see his child for the first time. But he had not imagined the ache of being fully aware that his choices had led to this position. He, witnessing life and love without being the person Emma needed him to be. He wanted to speak, to say the perfect words that would undo months of mistakes. But there is no undoing the past. Words now would only hover, empty, over the reality that had been created by his own hands. Emma looked up at him. Her eyes were soft, warm, and yet imbued with an unshakable firmness. "I forgive you," she said quietly. Her voice was gentle, but each word carried the weight of every tear she had shed, every sleepless night she had endured, every moment she had questioned herself, her worth, her life. But forgiveness doesn't mean you get to stay in our life the way you were before. That sentence hung between them, clear and unrelenting. Daniel felt it sink like a stone in his chest. The gravity of what he had lost, and what he might never regain, was a lesson taught with perfect clarity. The baby stirred in her arms. Emma shifted slightly, tucking the small body closer. The first soft cry echoed, pure and unfiltered. It was the sound of life and innocence. It reminded both of them that love existed in its purest form without complication, without deceit, without betrayal. Daniel tried again, voice low and full of sincerity. "I know I failed. I know I hurt you. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to make sense of it all, if that even matters anymore." Emma shook her head gently. "It matters," she said, "but not in the way you think. It matters that I remember who I am, that I protect the life that depends on me, that I love myself enough to make the right choices for our child." Daniel swallowed hard. He understood in that moment that love and selfishness cannot coexist. The lessons of the past months had been harsh. Betrayal is more than a moment. It is a series of choices, repeated or remembered, that shape the future irrevocably, and he had chosen poorly. Emma stood, baby cradled carefully against her chest. She walked toward the door. Each step was deliberate, strong, and unafraid. Daniel did not reach out to stop her. He knew this wasn't about control anymore. It wasn't about him. It had never truly been about him. It was about what she deserved, about what she would now build with courage, clarity, and love that could be trusted. She opened the door and stepped into the sunlight, and the city outside seemed brighter, filled with possibilities that had nothing to do with him. Daniel remained in the doorway, feeling the depth of absence he had never fully grasped before. The silence of that space pressed against him, heavier than any argument, heavier than any fight, heavier than any confession. He realized, in the most painful, lucid way, that his past mistakes could not be undone. The family he thought was his, whole, safe, and complete, had transformed into something he could no longer hold. And perhaps that was the truest lesson of all, that love without respect, without trust, without constancy, cannot survive. Even the most profound love has its limits when one person chooses fear, selfishness, or temptation over commitment. Emma walked down the hospital corridor with her child, each step marking a new beginning, a life that would be hers to shape. She would be the protector, the guide, and the nurturer. And in her chest, the warmth of hope burned steady, unwavering. She was no longer defined by the mistakes of another. She was defined by the courage it took to leave, to reclaim herself, to choose a future built on stability, trust, and love that she could rely upon. Daniel watched until the door closed behind her. The weight of loss settled around him. For the first time in his life, he truly understood that regret is a teacher harsher than any punishment. And love, real love, is about sacrifice, selflessness, and presence. He had learned too late, but he had learned nonetheless. And as Emma stepped into the sunlight, carrying the most precious part of herself, she realized something profound. Sometimes the bravest act of love isn't holding on. It's letting go. Because when you choose yourself, you create the possibility for a new life, one untainted by betrayal, strengthened by clarity, and guided by the purest form of love, protection, respect, and devotion that is earned, not demanded. The future awaited her, bright, fragile, unwritten, and this time she would write it herself.